A lot to be proud of, and it all happened so fast, like it's hard to appreciate in the moment.
That is Iowa native and Indiana Fever star, and now Times 2024 Athlete of the Year, Caitlin Clark, looking back at a whirlwind year.
The WNBA expansion draft was one of the most exciting moments for basketball fans this year, especially with the Golden State Valkyries entering the league.
So, Caitlin Clark and Christie Sides. Christie Sides, the first WNBA coach that Caitlin Clark played for. And surprisingly, even though in her recent Time article, she was very positive around WNBA coaches in general. She was very positive around how good the quality of coaching was in the WNBA. But she took a not so subtle jab at Caitlin Clark, at Christie Sides today.
Time magazine recognizes the monster impact Clark had on basketball, saying good luck naming another athlete who altered the trajectory of their entire team sport within 5 months on the job.
She's also a leader on and off the court, often taking over games in crucial moments. Any team would be lucky to have her, so it seems. But building a new franchise isn't just about talent, it's about fit, chemistry, and long-term planning. The Valkyries entered the expansion draft with a clear vision to build a team that could compete not just for attention but for championships. This meant focusing on players who could bring versatility and balance to their roster. Drafting a superstar like Caitlin Clark might have seemed like an easy way to grab headlines, but it could have disrupted the delicate process of creating a cohesive unit, one of the Valkyries' key selections. Tammy Bentley highlights the Valkyries' strategic approach. As a veteran center, Bentley brings defensive prowess and leadership qualities that are essential for any team trying to establish its identity. Her selection, however, raised eyebrows because it meant leaving behind Caitlin Clark, who remains with the Indiana Fever. Fans speculated that Bentley's departure from the Fever was directly tied to Clark's growing influence on the team. Now, here's where things get interesting. Caitlin Clark isn't just a basketball player, she's a brand. Her presence on the court draws media attention, boosts merchandise sales, and energizes fan bases. For the Indiana Fever, she's a cornerstone of their rebuild, but for the Valkyries, drafting someone of her stature might have posed challenges. Managing a star player requires resources, not just financially, but in terms of team dynamics. Clark's style of play demands that the team's offense revolve around her. She's a high-usage player who thrives on having the ball in her hands. While this approach works for established teams with defined systems, it can be risky for a new franchise trying to find its footing. The Valkyries may have wanted to avoid building their entire identity around one player, no matter how talented. Instead, they likely focused on creating a more balanced roster that could develop into a cohesive team capable of competing on all fronts without relying too heavily on any single player.
From the Atlanta Dream, the Golden State Valkyries select center Ileana Rupert.
Another layer to this decision is the Valkyries' emphasis on defense and versatility. Players like Bentley, Alana Rurt, and Monique Billings offer flexibility in multiple positions, allowing the team to adapt to different matchups. Drafting Clark, while enticing, might have limited their ability to assemble a well-rounded roster. But let's not overlook the Fever's role in all of this. As part of the expansion draft rules, teams were allowed to protect certain players. Unsurprisingly, the Fever chose to protect Caitlin Clark, effectively taking her off the table for the Valkyries. However, this decision came at a cost, leaving players like Bentley unprotected. For the Fever, this was a calculated risk. They prioritized securing their star player, knowing that losing others could be a necessary sacrifice. While accepting the potential loss of valuable role players, the decision to protect Clark also reflects her importance to the Fever's future. She's not just a player, she's a franchise centerpiece. Losing her would have been catastrophic for their rebuilding efforts. Still, some fans argue that the Fever's decision to leave Bentley unprotected was a mistake. After all, she's a reliable contributor who brings experience and toughness to the court. For the Valkyries, the draft was an opportunity to make a statement not just to the league but to their future fans. By passing on high-profile players like Caitlin Clark, they signaled their intent to build a team based on depth, teamwork, and strategic planning. This approach may not generate immediate buzz, but it sets the foundation for sustainable success. Of course, not everyone agrees with this strategy. Some critics believe the Valkyries missed an opportunity to draft a generational talent. Caitlin Clark's ability to draw fans and elevate her teammates makes her a rare commodity in the WNBA, Passing on her might be seen as a gamble, especially for a new team looking to establish itself in a competitive league. Still, there's a case to be made for the Valkyries' decision. Building a successful franchise takes time and careful planning. While star players like Caitlin Clark can be game changers, they also come with challenges both on and off the court. For the Valkyries, the expansion draft wasn't just about acquiring talent, it was about laying the groundwork for a team that can compete at the highest level. What's next? As the Valkyries prepare for their inaugural season, all eyes will be on their roster. Will their strategic approach pay off, or will they regret passing on players like Caitlin Clark?
We're just sick that we had lost so many games, and also feeling like we were better than that.
As the season progressed, Clark's game evolved. She studied defensive strategies and adjusted her play style, outsmarting even the most experienced defenders. Her teammates and her coach, Christie Sides, also adjusted to the once-in-a-generation play style of Clark. Some would even say Sides just let Clark run the show. Her hard work paid off. Clark was named Rookie of the Year and first-team All-WNBA, breaking 62 records along the way and proving she could excel among the pros. She had faced the fire and emerged stronger, more skilled, and more determined than ever. But while Clark was making waves on the court, her team was facing struggles of its own. The Indiana Fever's journey was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would test Clark's resolve and shape the future of the franchise.
Now, obviously, I don't think Caitlin Clark had anything to do with Christie Sides firing. I think Christie Sides' inability to coach basketball had everything to do with her firing, and I mean that. I think the reason why Christie Sides got fired is because she's not a very good basketball coach. And I think that if you put in any sort of competent basketball mind, you can tell she's not a very...
You don't know how to use Caitlin Clark's strengths. You don't know how to play to her weaknesses. You don't know how to draw up a simple out-of-bounds play. You don't know how to calm down muddy waters. You don't know how to call a timeout and relax everybody's emotions. You don't know how to talk to the referees. All you know how to do is wave your arms and defensive slide on the sidelines. And Christie Sides, I'm tired of seeing it every single...
The answer might not come immediately, but one thing is certain: this decision will be scrutinized. The Valkyries' decision to pass on Caitlin Clark, while their choice might seem baffling on the surface, is essential to understand within the bigger picture. How does this decision impact the future of the Valkyries and Caitlin Clark's role with the Indiana Fever? First, let's revisit the idea of building a team from scratch. When you're starting a new franchise, there's an undeniable pressure to make a splash. A player like Caitlin Clark would have undoubtedly grabbed headlines and put fans in seats. However, a franchise's success isn't measured by hype alone, it's about winning games and developing a sustainable culture. The Valkyries seem to have prioritized balance over star power. One aspect of this decision revolves around Caitlin Clark's fit within a brand new system. Clark is known for her dynamic, high-energy style of play. She's a high-usage player who thrives in systems designed to showcase her individual talents. However, for a new team like the Valkyries, drafting a player of Clark's caliber could have led to a lopsided roster. The team might have been tempted to build entirely around her, potentially sacrificing depth and versatility in the process. On the flip side, there's no denying the risks involved in bypassing a star like Clark. Historically, teams that secure elite talent in their early years often set themselves up for long-term success. Clark's ability to draw double teams, stretch defenses, and control the pace of a game makes her a generational talent. By passing on her, the Valkyries could be gambling on their ability to find comparable talent in the future, a risk that might not pay off.
Was #1 last night, but for her rookie season, she's only making $76,000. I say only, but that's just in comparison to other NBA players and WNBA players. What does that say about the pay gap?
Let's also talk about the role of protected players in the expansion draft. As mentioned earlier, the Indiana Fever protected Caitlin Clark, ensuring she wouldn't be available for selection. This move was a no-brainer for the Fever. Clark is not just a key player for their team. I make her a key asset for any team, especially one looking to build a solid foundation. Tammy Bentley's experience and defensive prowess bring a stability that is often undervalued, particularly for a new franchise like the Valkyries. While her stats may not make headlines, her leadership on and off the court, particularly in high-pressure situations, could prove to be invaluable in helping the team develop its identity and culture. The Fever's decision to protect Caitlin Clark, while understandable from a franchise perspective, left them vulnerable in other areas, allowing the Valkyries to capitalize on this by selecting Bentley. It's a classic case of balancing risk and reward, where the Fever had to secure their star player while also potentially sacrificing depth. For the Valkyries, however, picking up a seasoned player like Bentley could help lay the groundwork for a more well-rounded, competitive team as they build towards future success with the right supporting cast. While Caitlin Clark undoubtedly has the talent to elevate her teammates, the Fever's success will depend on how effectively they build around her. The pressure on Clark to carry the team could be overwhelming without complementary players who can contribute in key areas like defense, playmaking, and rebounding. For the Fever, maintaining balance will be crucial to their long-term success. As a transformative figure, Clark will likely draw attention, increase merchandise sales, and boost fan engagement, but if the Fever focus too much on making her the centerpiece, it could create issues with roster depth and team chemistry. The challenge will be finding a way to maximize her strengths while building a well-rounded team that can compete at a high level. On the other hand, the Valkyries' decision to focus on versatility and balance might not immediately capture the spotlight, but it could prove to be a more sustainable approach. Their long-term vision involves creating a cohesive and adaptable team, which could give them an advantage in the future. However, the absence of a marquee player like Clark may hinder their ability to gain the kind of attention and fan base needed to thrive in the competitive WNBA environment. The financial implications of building a team are significant, especially for a new franchise like the Valkyries. While the Fever might rely on the revenue generated by Clark's star power to offset some of the costs, the Valkyries' strategy of focusing on versatile role players could help them manage their salary cap more effectively in the long run. By not investing heavily in one high-profile player, the Valkyries can allocate their resources to building depth and strengthening various positions, which is critical for team sustainability. This financial approach also allows the Valkyries to be more flexible with their roster in the future. If they decide to bring in star players later on, they will have the financial flexibility to make those moves without compromising their overall team structure. By contrast, the Fever may face challenges down the line if they place too much emphasis on Clark's individual performance and star power, potentially limiting their ability to balance the roster with other key pieces. Ultimately, the Valkyries' decision to build a balanced team may take time to show results, but it could provide them with a solid foundation for the future. On the other hand, the Fever's reliance on Clark's star power might give them immediate visibility, but could pose risks if the team fails to complement her strengths with a well-rounded roster.
Clark's pulling in more than some top NBA rookies.
Now, word on the street is that Caitlin Clark basically made around $11 million for the year of 2024.
Can you believe that the girl everyone thinks is getting shortchanged is actually out earning some of the guys?
And team chemistry over individual stardom, the Valkyries are betting on long-term success rather than instant gratification. By focusing on building a well-rounded roster, they aim to create a cohesive unit that can adapt to various challenges and styles of play. This approach may not bring immediate fan excitement or the marketability boost that a player like Caitlin Clark could offer, but it sets a strong foundation for future growth. While Clark's marketability and ability to drive revenue are undeniable, the Valkyries' decision to avoid the financial strain of building around a single superstar could ultimately allow them to create a more sustainable team. Managing the contract of a star player like Clark, especially for a new team, could have been a financial burden, potentially limiting their ability to fill out the roster with the necessary depth. The team's emphasis on chemistry and culture is also an important factor. Building a team that works well together and buys into a collective vision can be just as important, if not more so, than having a single standout player. By focusing on versatility and creating a culture of teamwork, the Valkyries are laying the groundwork for a franchise that can grow organically and compete for years to come. This decision, though it might not yield instant results, reflects a thoughtful approach to team building that could pay off in the future. Different strategies for building a franchise in the WNBA, the Valkyries have chosen to prioritize defense, depth, and adaptability, constructing a team that can compete through balance and versatility. While this approach could lead to steady growth and long-term success, the absence of a marquee player like Caitlin Clark could present challenges, particularly in terms of attracting fans and building excitement around the franchise in its early years. On the other hand, the Indiana Fever's decision to protect Clark underscores her importance not only as a player but as the face of their franchise. The Fever are betting on Clark's star power to propel them through their rebuilding phase, believing her individual brilliance will help drive the team forward. While losing valuable role players like Tammy Bentley may hurt them in the short term, the Fever are placing their faith in Clark's ability to elevate the team both on and off the court. Ultimately, the Valkyries' choice and the Fever's decision highlight the different paths franchises can take, one focused on sustainable, balanced growth and the other on leveraging star power for immediate impact. Time will tell which strategy proves to be more effective in building a competitive and successful franchise.
The average ticket price has gone up, say roughly $100. So that right there is looking at $1 million per game. And so if you take that times 14 home games, that's $14 million.
So you might be wondering how she's doing it well. Clark's not just thinking about next season or even the next 5 years. She's playing the long game, setting herself up as a brand that goes way beyond basketball, those speaking gigs at Nike. Deal, they're just the beginning.
They did release a list of the top earning female athletes, and Caitlin Clark is 10 at 11.1 million.
Clark's success isn't just about her, it's forcing the entire sports world to rethink how they value women athletes. The WNBA sponsors even entire cities. They're all scrambling to keep up with the Clark effect. So what's next? That's the million-dollar question. Because at this point, it's not about whether Clark's getting paid enough. It's about whether the rest of the world can keep up with her. One thing's for sure, we're watching history in the making, and Clark's just getting started.
A few months ago, and it's going to continue to grow and grow and grow. I would be shocked if it's under 15 million. And the fact is, if she didn't get screwed by Nike and got what she was realistically worth, which is probably the 10 mil a year, that could be closer to 20 mil.
Of being the face of the franchise will be under constant scrutiny. As the Fever's centerpiece, Clark will need to not only deliver standout performances on the court, but also embrace the leadership role required to elevate the entire team. The pressure to succeed will be immense, and her ability to carry the load and foster team chemistry will be key to the Fever's success. For the Valkyries, the challenge lies in proving that a roster built on versatility, depth, and balance can thrive in a league where star power often dominates. Players like Tammy Fagbennell, Monique Billings, and Alana Wirt will need to step up and play pivotal roles, showing that the collective strength of the team can overcome the absence of a marquee player. Additionally, the coaching staff will be crucial in developing a cohesive and adaptable system that maximizes the potential of the team as a whole. As the new season approaches, both teams will face unique challenges. The Valkyries will look to prove that their strategy can be effective against teams built around individual stars, while the Fever will rely on Caitlin Clark to lead them through their rebuilding phase. The outcomes of these decisions will shape the future of both franchises and, in turn, could have a significant impact on the landscape of the WNBA for years to come. In the ongoing evolution of the WNBA, the Fever's strategy centers around the idea of building a team around Caitlin Clark's unique talents, believing that her star power and individual brilliance can elevate the franchise and draw the necessary attention to the team. However, this approach places immense pressure on Clark to deliver and requires the Fever to find complementary players who can maximize her strengths. On the other hand, the Valkyries' decision to pass on Clark in favor of a more balanced, team-oriented roster reflects a long-term vision focused on versatility, depth, and sustainable growth. While they may not have the immediate excitement or marketability that comes with a star like Clark, their approach could set the stage for future success built on teamwork and adaptability. The contrasting approaches of these two teams will undoubtedly influence the future of both franchises and could impact the overall direction of the league. As the season unfolds, it will be intriguing to see how these strategies play out and which approach proves to be more successful in building a competitive and lasting team. Ultimately, this debate emphasizes that creating a successful WNBA franchise involves far more than just acquiring talent. It requires a clear vision, strategic planning, and the ability to build a team that can thrive together. As the Valkyries and the Indiana Fever embark on their respective journeys, the contrasting strategies of team building will shape the future of the WNBA. The Valkyries' long-term approach of balance and versatility versus the Fever's focus on Caitlin Clark's star power presents an intriguing narrative for the season ahead. Both teams are taking calculated risks, and only time will reveal which strategy will ultimately lead to success. One thing is certain: the choices made now will have a lasting impact on their legacies and the landscape of the league for years to come. Stay tuned as these teams make their mark on the WNBA.